said that you had a blood test with this Manuel. Can you explain to the viewing audience what this blood test is and if anyone can get it? What is your doctor going to say when you say, I want my AA to EPA ratio taken or whatever blood test?
They might as well say, you know, are you coming from the planet Uranus? Because they won't know what you're talking about. This is a test used primarily in research applications. Yeah. It's not a classical test.
Well, wouldn't you think that it would, since it's such an epidemic, the obesity epidemic, that there would be some sort of test that they would at least do for you?
Well, what's our first test of obesity? Take your clothes off and stand stark naked in front of the mirror. Say, you're fat.
Go on the scale.
Well, that doesn't tell you whether you're fat and you're inflamed or fat and not inflamed. If you're fat and inflamed, you've got basically one foot in the grave and the other foot on a banana peel. Bad things are going to happen. But if you're fat and you're not inflamed, according to the CDC, you might live a very long time. So we have to be rethinking this whole obesity crisis as not a crisis of basically lack of willpower. Let me give you an example. You're a man of will, right?
I think so.
All right. Here's a test of how
I
much...
don't have one.
A test of how much will you have. Hold your breath for 25 minutes.
Only if I'm on the Regis and Kelly show. He did it for 17.
But, you know...
I get your point.
Say these are biological urges. If I don't have enough oxygen, body says, I don't care how much will you have, open your mouth. Mm-hmm. Now we'll get back to, let's say, the overweight individual. Say, eat less, exercise more.
That's my next question. But you say that that doesn't work.
Well, if they have a fat trap, that means basically now this inflammation is activating of their genes in their adipose tissue. The food goes in the mouth. But you say, wait a minute, what does food do?
Gives you energy, it makes ATP.
Well, basically, the food has to be converted into chemical energy, ATP, you're quite correct. And if you don't have enough ATP, the body doesn't survive very long. The body can store maybe 10 seconds worth of ATP. Yeah. So you're going to be making it all the time. And that's why we eat. And what happens if we're not making enough ATP? We have to eat more. So what happens if you have a fat trap? That basically, yes, you're putting the calories in the mouth, but they're being stuck in the adipose tissue. They can't get out
to
make ATP. No,
okay.
They're being trapped there.
Okay.
You've got a fat trap. Well, guess what? You can't make very much ATP. Now, you only have two options as a human being.
Yeah.
You either basically eat more calories to try to get enough coming out of the adipose tissue to make ATP. Now you're called a glutton. Or you slow down all of your physical activity to conserve what ATP you do have. Now you're called sloth. Well, it turns out sloth and gluttony are not the causes of our obesity epidemic. They are the consequences. Now what happens when the overweight person who has a fat trap, who remains active, is asked to basically eat less and exercise more? One, by eating less, they'll make less ATP. And by exercising more, they'll use up what ATP they have. Mm-hmm. Well, eventually this becomes a ridiculous situation, like trying to hold your breath for 25 minutes. The body says, this is stupid. This is what Karen Carpenter does for a living. They say, start eating more or stop exercising, but we're basically dying here. We don't have ATP. And that's why eating less and exercising more will always fail for overweight people. When they do clinical studies at Harvard, first of all, you have very, very highly motivated people entering these clinical studies. They say, yeah, I have failed, I'm still fat, I know Harvard will have some answer. So what do you see? You see basically, initially, their weight goes down. They're exercising more, they're eating less. Mm-hmm. And then it plateaus.
So in the short run, that can work.
Oh, of course.
But you're saying long term,
well,
we see a 90%
they regain it.
Yeah.
So I say, well, these people are morally inferior. This proves it. No, basically what's happening, they're basically recognizing a very disastrous situation. Let's now look at obese animals. You know, the little rats that look like basketballs. Now, we can make them eat less and exercise more. But unlike human subjects, we can also basically kill them afterwards and see what happens. Well, if you take these obese animals who have a very active fat trap and they eat less and exercise more, they lose weight. But you can keep on basically prodding them, you know, with electric prods. They keep exercising more and cut back their calories. And now when you look at them in autopsy, they haven't lost very much fat. Mm-hmm. They have lost weight because they have basically cannibalized their muscles and their organs. So this makes no sense. And this is what happens with people who have an active fat trap. If they exercise more, and they will initially lose weight, but all the weight is cannibalization of their tissue. And now you, as an exercise physiologist, is that a good thing?
No.
No.
You want to have lean body mass so you can
But
build your
what
metabolism.
if you're cannibalizing it? Say, how long would that go on before you say, this is stupid?
Mm-hmm.
Not your mind, the body
Right.
saying, this is stupid. I need to have more
It's like being on the Atkins diet.
Exactly. That's why you'll lose weight on the Atkins diet initially, you plateau, and you gain it back. Because basically what has happened, that on the Atkins diet, when you have too little carbohydrates, and the brain needs some,
Your body uses fat, doesn't do it too well, then
but
it
it
uses
also
lean body mass.
to make carbohydrates for the brain.
Yep.
And as you do that, you're increasing the levels of the hormone cortisol, which eventually gives rise to insulin resistance, and your lack of willpower. Frankly, if you're on the Atkins diet, you're eating 48-ounce porterhouse steaks for lunch and dinner, and basically bacon, eggs for